purpose, and audience, right?
These would all be indicators for us at the higher. That's what's confusing for me.
Okay, they are here for elementary too.
Well, like all of these little things would have like
A number.
yeah,
ABC or something.
yeah, and
Okay.
so yeah.
Well,
That's
remember, at
what's-
your school, you're going to work with teams who are
Right.
familiar with the structure of their own standards. So we're just trying to model this so you get the feel of this flow. How's that?
See, and here's where you're starting. Gosh, I can see now the relationship, all of it. Here's where you're starting
Really?
to pull in, the conventions that we said, you said
Right.
that would come in later is down here, within that, even within this. Because you're talking about using words, phrases, and clauses. You're using,
Right.
so that would kind of pull in the conventions.
So when we talk about, now, I'm kind of hearing the writing process in that. The whole writing process. Are students at 5th grade very
There's-
familiar with the whole writing process?
They have to be, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not worried about us putting the actual steps of the writing process
Right.
on here. They already know it, and they should by 5th grade. But what we're going to do is connect the conventions to the revision part of the writing process. But are we doing that right here? Or are we doing
No.
that? Where are we doing that?
Third?
I would think the third. When you either the
Yeah.
second or the third.
Yeah.
It might be here and not here, not the last.
Right.
I mean, the second
I
one
would
is-
say the second though.
They're gonna be
because-
Yeah,
high step,
because
that's
yeah,
what they're
we
gonna
need
be
to have
required
that-
to do on that
yes.
first round.
So I
Okay,
think you
so
have to
right
get it
here, we're
through.
going to pull over the conventions
Yeah, and that
and
was
connect it
6,
to the
I
writing
think.
process. Everybody agree? What
That
number
was
is
W
that?
point 6, I think,
Okay.
wasn't it? I think it was 6.
6. Okay.
Punctuation, usage, commas.
And we're going to expect 5th graders to use all of those, right? We're not going to say, okay, well, we're going to put punctuation over here, and then
No.
we're not going to do that. We're going to
No.
expect them to use all of those conventions that are in that. Is that right?
Yep.
You're right? Okay, so conventions are here, and they're going to roll over here, right?
Yep.
And we're going to connect it. It's in the writing, so it's not something we're teaching outside of writing, right? We're going to teach it within the student's writing. Everybody agree with that? Okay, so we've got that going, because see, that determines our assessments, remember? And what's the concept we said the other day behind conventions? What's the big idea? What do conventions do for us?
Well, I would think it makes it readable for
Yeah,
others.
conventions help the reader, right? Know what to do. Okay, so that's our big concept. Conventions are signals to the reader about what this means, what the sentence means, right? Or what this piece of writing means.
Okay, can I stop just a second, just to
This is
clarify a question?
Absolutely, this is the way a
Okay.
real team would work.
All right, so, I guess my mind is working here, but now I'm starting to see the connections to the reading, and I'm starting to see the connections to,
Yes. Good for you.
Yep.
So next, we couldn't, in a
It's
40-minute period, our goal today is to get writing here, right? But we might set as a goal at the end of today to, I don't know, review this on our own a little bit, and then come back and let's do reading next, because we know we're beginning to sense the connections. And I don't want to set the goal right now. I want us to work through this as much as we
Okay.
can. And then say, I'm beginning to see the connections, maybe that's our
but
next
we
goal.
we want to just kind of look at the do we want to take just one thing?
Yeah, I
per
actually
session.
do, because
And
people,
then, okay,
you start hopping around all over the place. If you see a connection, put that on that Post-it note, would you, right now? You see a connection to the reading, just put it on Post-it note and bring it next time. How's that?
Okay,
But
sounds
if we start hopping around, people lose the thread. So we want to
Right.
get this all the way across, and we want to get these all the way across, and then we'll start adding
adding the other
aspects
things
to
to
it.
it. Okay.
That okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
That helps.
So we've started this convention thing, and we said they're going to use them all. And
We put conventions all the way to the fourth quarter, since they're gonna have to include those in the fourth quarter writing as well.
that's fine.
Can we carry that
We
line
can
on?
absolutely, we can carry it on. Generally, this line means I'm testing for mastery here. So that's why I would end it well, I ended it at the third, but if you want it to come all the way, we're not gonna test till mastery till the end of the third, that's perfect.
I'm just thinking rubric wise, if I was doing a writing, I may look at conventions periodically and just look
Right.
at just conventions in the fourth quarter to make sure they're still
Right.
using them.
Well, then
appropriately.
then I would do what I said, I would end it here, but that means that is just in renewal. And
Okay.
some people do, I don't really, but some people do introduce, immerse and sustain. But the errors tell me that, but you can do that too if you want to. You can just put on here, well, here's where we're gonna say the kids need to be mastering it by now. Yes, I'm checking it out here, but I'm checking a lot of things out here, not just mastery. Okay, but this they better do. They better show me in that last quarter that they can write for a variety of purposes, variety of audiences, show me any kind of genre by that time. So I'm gonna have a portfolio or something, we'll have to talk about assessments, that will show me they're doing all of that and doing it well, right? Okay, so anything else that you see, let's go back to our whole thing on writing and see, because we've got,
Because here's evidence.
we've got one, right, for routine, for a variety of purposes, but we haven't really pulled one back over here. Like we've got it out here.
Well, that's where one pulls in the reading.
Okay.
One is where you're gonna link some of your reading to your writing. So,
Okay.
that's
Okay, go
why
ahead.
My reading standards.
You could say
to support-
content things right now and then come back and do the actual reading skills, but what were you thinking? Go on.
well, one ties the reading standards where they're reflecting to their reading and their writing.
Okay,
And so it adds to the purpose of, so it would add to your purpose why you're writing, because you're reading something and you're responding to it in writing. You're
Okay.
reflecting and responding to writing, so
What
that's
is
kind of
that?
where you're,
what is that number?
that's one. 5W.1 is where you're reflecting to literature.
Okay, so
Either.
5W1 is reflecting, and it's because we're pulling it out of this, are they reflecting as to the author's purpose, the audience, the author?
Well, and that's not what it says. It's
comprehensive.
not being very specific there.
Okay, but let's think
But I
about
don't know.
ourselves. What do you think?
Well, it's gonna be
There's task purposes, audience.
yeah. It could be for a range of discipline-specific tests. We would have already analyzed this. and
Okay,
we've
you'd have
done
already
it.
analyzed that one we already analyzed that one. So we said it was, okay, and we're gonna use scientific, nonfiction text, we're gonna use historical first, what am I trying to say, the real thing, text from our history, right, or from the world's history. So we've defined that when we,
Accounts or something.
yeah, so, is that okay, everybody? Still we mean that? So that is a really nice connection, what you were just saying to me, is that notion of, okay, well, what do you think this author, who was the author of the Declaration of Independence, really meant? What was his audience? Was it the African-American slave, or was it white men?
And then that goes along with 3.1 that says support the position with qualitative and quantitative facts and details from various sources, including text.
Oh, I'm putting in this the first quarter, but I bet that's a second quarter thing,
Yeah.
is it? Everybody agree?
Well,
'Cause this we're kinda
this is
spinning-
more of like with persuasive, but then that kind of comes in. I mean, it goes along with all the other
Yeah, because
genres
you're-
because you're still doing that. You're still
you're
referencing the
Yeah.
text. And
You're starting to look at evidence to support what in your writing, because that would be in almost any
And
kind.
we usually start that right away in the middle school area because it's on the first part of I-STEP, that responding to the text, the comparing the two texts, doing that writing prompt and responding to both of the text.
Well,
So,
we can start
that
that in the
ties-
first quarter because, I
Yeah.
mean, that quarter's a
Looking
long
at how
time.
to,
First and
how to
second.
utilize evidence to support
Yeah, okay.
your reflection in writing and stuff like that, because that is in all of them. All the different kinds of writing. So,
And maybe we're gonna heavy do that here.
and I
and
think
that's
it would
kind of-
become more specific types of
Okay.
writing there.
Okay.
They're learning to support.
So some content
One.
coming
Read and prove
here
it.
might be persuasion, I heard, and
Informative,
and
narrative.
informative. And I might want to start with persuasion and informative here,
Yeah.
and I might,
And narrative and the third.
and the third are, depending again on ISTEP, how that,
It depends on what grade level, we don't even know which one, so I would put narrative in the beginning, that's usually an easier one for the kids to respond to and pull out. And
Yeah,
then
it's
the
kind of, I'm
persuasive
kind of torn
informative.
because like with narrative, it's so basic.
yeah.
You could really be focusing more on the process and which, you know, they should know because they've been doing it for years.
They should
but-
know
narrative is
but at the
personal,
same
it's
time-
something that they're
Exactly, so it'd be
comfortable with.
easier to grasp the concepts, I think, using narrative easier in
You
the first
could
quarter.
use nonfiction narrative, like, biography or something like that, and get their heads back in it. But I think that's something for us to think about as a team. Are we constantly repeating curriculum content that the kids don't need? It's
Right.
consuming our teaching time. So if we need to start with informative text and then move to persuasion, are the harder pieces of writing,
And
like conflict.
referencing the text and including that in
Referencing.
your writing, and that's major for ISTEP. That's
Yeah.
the biggest, you know.
So
that
why
was-
don't we try that? Why don't we start with
So-
informative text and move to persuasive? Does that make sense to everybody? Those are content decisions, right? Okay, everybody gets that. And now we haven't talked about nonfiction, but that's where we can connect it to narrative writing, fiction. That's what-
Nonfiction is there.
Nonfiction?
It's in one.
Yeah,
In
okay, so we'll
W1
put
is
nonfiction, how's that? Well, that would connect with informative text, wouldn't it? Really well, okay. Okay, we have about 5 more minutes. How many more standards are we?
I think we're looking at it pretty good with writing.
Okay, did we
Have we
check
done
them
the
all?
second?
I don't know what W2 was. I can't. Oh, 2 is research?
No, that's fine.
5.
Research, where we?
It's not really one they just build on 4th grade. Write legibly.
Okay.
Handwriting.
Done.
Okay, so we
Type
so-
legibly.
So
Use
5
those
W
thumbs.
5
Five
is
So-
research, 5
It's
W 5
research.
I
is
think would be a
research.
little bit, maybe introduce it in the second quarter. Am I right? I don't know where they're tested on all of that, but
It's not much tested on the
You know what, we always put that at the end of the year. What if we combined it with our informative and nonfiction text and did research at the beginning of the year when the kids are
Well,
fresh?
and you know, I
Yeah,
think
they
it's
don't have to be
interesting, like
long.
with what you said, that that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So we wait till the end,
Yeah,
so they
and-
barely get it, and then it's
Then it's
summer,
gone.
and they forget, you know, so
So
like.
let's try that one at the
technology, is that what
beginning.
it
How's
said?
that?
All right.
No, it
All
says
right.
present research
Let's try it
information choosing
in a
from
different
variety
way.
sources.
Yeah, 'cause you
So
can
that
do
is
multiple small
5W
research.
5. All right, so research.
I mean, starting very basically and then
Yeah.
progressing and making it more
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah,
Brings in
which is
technology.
nice to combine with persuasion
that's
again,
great.
because by the time we get there, and I can even see debate over here in persuasion as a great assessment strategy. Anybody?
And that's also gonna tie in your reading ones too.
Okay.
So, which we will get to at a different,
Maybe
Middle
next
school
week.
uses argumentative, so that would be perfect for that.
That would be.
They do argumentative.
Awesome.
And it's on ISTEP first round and second round, so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great.
it's so nice that you're teaching argument down there.
We try.
Okay, everybody,
goal.
let's take a minute to breathe deeply about our work today in our session. What are you taking away from this session that's going to help you teach this week?
It's not as hard as I thought.
What?
It's not as hard as I thought it was.
It's not as hard. This is not hard work. How's that? There's a lot of hard work in the world, but this is like a big thinking puzzle. Okay? But with a teaching team, I'd want them to tell me, well, this week, you know what, I hadn't even thought about that standard that way, and I am really going to focus more on X when I'm teaching this week. Okay? Then I'd make everybody on the team share one thing that this time together mattered, and then I would do the commitment thing. Okay, well, what are we going to commit to for this week?
And to
everybody share.
recopying these and cutting them out.
Oh, yeah. You know, a lot of people do that. They just cut and paste them. But here's the downside. You're not reading them. You're not struggling over them. You got to make sure that, as a coach, Okay, don't just cut and paste that somewhere. Let's talk about it.